On to our second semifinals of the ONOG Summer Circuit Feature Tournament number 3. It's going to be our feature match for today. Firebat versus Trump, two of the biggest names in the Hearthstone scene.
Yeah. Oh man, I can bet that they were studying. There's got to be some rivalry at least between them, knowing that they're going up each against an opponent with a name as big as their own. That they would want to win this match just for glory. Like even without any prizes on the line, you would want to take this game so you could say you've had it. So I can
Yeah.
bet that they know the opponent's decks inside and out, and that extra decks that will be brought will really be interesting to see.
Yeah. Another thing to note that possibly most players or most viewers don't know is that because Sukipan, he actually can't attend PAX, the winner of this match automatically goes to PAX Prime,
Wow, really?
which is pretty huge.
Huh.
He was actually the only player who couldn't attend. So because he's in the finals, like these two are basically playing for not only $750, but a chance to attend the PAX Prime finals. And that's actually really important because PAX is the last tournament that awards Hearthstone World Championship points, and it's a tier 1 tournament. So anyone who attends just gets like a huge boost in their World Championship points. Firebat I know is already in the top 8, but Trump is around he's around rank 10, I believe. And if you get rank 8 in the rank 8 in the Hearthstone World Championship points or above, you get a huge advantage. You get to basically get 2 buys in the regional qualifiers. So this is a huge match, especially for Trump.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they want to win. That's really cool that Suki couldn't go. So this match actually has even more pressure on it for the players, as if there wasn't enough pressure enough
Yeah, I think both
already.
these players want to win more in the semifinals than actually win in the final tournament, which is pretty funny.
Yeah. I would like to mention that we see Firebat's extra deck here as a priest, which is really unusual, and that's the first priest that we've seen in the entire feature tournament, I think.
Yeah, it's I heard Firebat talking about Priest the other day or just a few months ago, and he says the only reason he would ever bring Priest to a tournament is if A, he net decked it, or B, he's trying to really hard counter something. And we have to mention to you guys again, remind you guys that both these players were had to submit their fourth decks before we started off, before the group stages. So Firebat brought this priest not knowing that he would face Trump and not knowing that he would possibly have to face Trump's lineup of that includes Handlock, right?
Yep. And I mean, on the other side of things, Trump's lineup looks super standard to me. We have Hunter, Warlock, Druid, Warrior, pretty much the most common picks, the things that you can count on to consistently take games. It feels weird to say it, but I think probably the weakest deck in that lineup may be the Hand Warlock, that specifically matches up so well against Firebat's lineup of Priest and Freeze Mage that it should be pretty well performing nonetheless.
Yeah, we know that Trump's Handlock, even though it's like slightly weaker with 2 oozes teched in, it's also extremely strong with the tech of a Lotheb and a Ragnaros in the deck.
Yeah. Uh,
So even
in
though
the
there's like 2 useless cards, there's 2 cards that definitely make the matchup a lot better.
Was Trump playing Jiraxis? I don't remember now.
He was not.
It was not. Yeah, so the priest matchup is actually a lot harder when you're not playing Jiraxis. But in any case, we jump into the first game here, and they are both playing their warrior right off the bat. No fear. Pick the guy with the weapons, and he'll chop through your opponent. I like Firebat's hand a lot better right now, of course, with the patron and Deathbite already. Oh yeah, and Firebat had that Lotheb in his patron warrior, which is a really unusual tech choice.
Yeah, I believe he also kept the Lotheb in his opening hand. That's also a bit strange. It does somewhat make sense since in our last patron mirror that we saw that basically Irony went off with a huge patron turn on turn 5 with the coin.
Yep.
And what Lotheb does, if you play it on turn 5, it denies those kind of turns. It denies Inner Rage and it denies Whirlwind.
I think the Lotheb's also really nice because of 5 health. In this matchup specifically, it's pretty much going to die to only a second attack from Death's Bite. So if your opponent was setting up their patron turn, play a Death's Bite on 4, hit you in the face, turn 5 rolls around, they play in a patron, you play Lotheb, they have to make that call of do they just wait and take damage from Lotheb, or do they hit it with the weapon, use up their activator without actually getting patrons involved can be like a really sticky situation that you don't see often.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna talk to Firebat after this and ask him why he's bringing Lotheb. Firebat is known as one of the players that just really loves to bring like these small tech cards to tournaments. We
Yep.
know like Youthful Brewmaster from DreamHack a while ago that got double that he basically had a dream turn where he BGH'd Brewmasters and BGH'd two Mountain Giants in a row. So that was pretty huge.
Wow.
He's played um he's played Stone Tusk Boar in Miracle Rogue before. And what other tech choices has he brought? Just a lot of interesting ones overall. Direwolf Alpha, back in the days when it wasn't really popular in Hunter, was also a key one that he brought to BlizzCon last year.
Well, Acolyte gets War Axe, not what Firebat wanted to see because there was so much potential to draw multiple cards there. I mean, you probably just slam this, and we can notice that Trump did not attack Firebat, trying to play around that Battle Rage.
Yeah.
Ooh,
If
that looks
you
nice.
if you see your opponent play an unstable ghoul in this matchup, though, you can definitely expect him to have a Fire War Axe. Like no good player will play the ghoul without a Fire War Axe since the acolyte is so punishing. But I have heard from players is that there might be a mind game involved where if you play an unstable ghoul, your opponent thinks that you're a good player, so he'll have the Fire War Axe. But it's just kind of like even if you don't have it, you might just like he might just play it on the board and you save your acolyte for a later turn because you know your opponent has the Fire War Axe.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like Firebat's hand a lot better than Trump's right now. Of course, we have at least a turn 6 4 set of patrons, and Trump is looking at just nothing right now. Oh, Emperor is great at least. It doesn't really work with this hand, but if you go second on, like, you know, if the other guy goes patrons first, you really need the Emperor to be able to turn it around in a substantial way. So, pretty good pickup. I don't know if you play it here, even though it's like one of the only good plays this turn. It's just not hitting anything worthwhile except the Battle Rage.
The Slotheb will actually be able to get quite a bit of damage in if Firebat chooses to Deathspite it. Deathspite the probable Emperor that will come.
It looks like he probably just executes this.
Yeah,
The
it actually
Emperor
doesn't seem bad. Execute X. This is probably the best target for executing the entire deck. Sans maybe the Emperor itself.
Yep. If he plays Emperor, it's just going to get smoked by the Deathspite anyways, so then the Lotheb will remain on the board and continue attacking. Well, I like that Lotheb tech choice. I might have to try that out for myself. That looked really effective here.
Yeah, it's not typically a card that you would think works well in Patron because it really doesn't have too many synergies. But it definitely seemed to work out that particular turn. It's just that Lotheb, we've been talking about Lotheb over the past weekend. Lotheb is so good these days in the metagame that you just might want to put it in every single deck. With the possible exception of Freeze Mage.
Boy, if only Trump had a frothing right now. He could hope to pick up a frothing. I think it's like almost a mandatory Emperor turn because there's no way to clear here. You just hit one of the patrons and play Emperor, and then you hope that the patrons will have to trade into Emperor, which would get you pretty good value.
Yeah, in fact, not really a good way for Firebat to deal with the Emperor.
He does have the Battle Rage, though. I think it's pretty worthwhile to inner rage the 1 health patron, both for Battle Rage and just because that's a likely one that would trade into the Emperor.
Yeah. The thing is, how good even is this hand for the Emperor to come down on? I think you really want a patron at least, or possibly even a Frothing Berserker.
This is a pretty good play, I guess. He just sets up to clear the board with a Deathbite next turn and forces another activator out of Firebat.
Wow, no activator here. So does he have to go for the shield block here? he definitely needs like some kind of activator.
Okay.
Well, that's something, I guess.
Does that actually work? Yeah, it does. That looks like that. Well, at least keep the 2 health patron in play. And Trump taking a huge beating at 13 health. Plus, there's frothing with charge in Firebat's hand, so it's not too difficult to imagine him finishing off, even if the board was cleared.
I'm trying to see if there's a cleared, but unfortunately, even with that turn we saw in the previous game with Warsong Commander into Inner Raged Armorsmith, that essentially does the same thing as a Death Spite. So he really needed to equip that Death Spite the previous turn. Although Trump has seen how difficult it is for Firebat to... he's seen how difficult it was for Firebat to get an activator for the patron. So he can be slightly more confident that there won't just be... there won't be yet another activator.
Okay, is he dead? 8 plus the frothing plus 1. 8 plus 3, no, he has 11 damage. If Trump had not interraged, he would be dead. But he's got 1 health left now.
Yeah, yet again, there's no activator. Although you can just play the Unstable Ghoul. And basically, Trump then would have to draw into another slam.
Playing the Unstable Ghoul gives a lot of potential for Trump to use his own patrons, though, because you could have a charge patron turn here. And then the Ghoul would spawn 1 on the attack of the Ghoul plus the Whirlwind, so it's giving you like a 6 patron off of that Death Bite as well. Alright, slow and steady. Pretty much as soon as Trump plays an actual creature, he's going to die, so I don't see a lot of ways he can recover here. Maybe like a double Armorsmith, but...
That's just not going to be it.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't really see any way to clear off... I mean...
Like, I think maybe you could survive by throwing Whirlwinds and an Unstable Ghoul with the Armorsmith, but you're going to give infinite card draw to Firebat, and there's like so many ways that that will kill you anyways. So you do what you can, but it looks like Trump is pretty much toast. It kind of sucks to still have the Emperor in your hand at this point in the battle.
Yeah. So there might have been like a play where Trump goes for the Emperor and just hopes for the best. But even then, it didn't seem really that he had the cards necessary to come back.
Yeah. He did end up battle raging for just 1, so there was a battle rage that he could have emperored down and like maybe used a Whirlwind with. It was definitely a dire situation no matter what happened.
Okay.
Do what you gotta do.
I guess that works. But that's gonna be game?
Yep.
Yep. Charge anything would probably win the game here. Well, I guess he certainly needed the frothing, I guess, and he needed either the frothing or a War Axe would have done it. Is he going for the most fancy play?
It's interesting that this actually adds damage, even though Trump's gaining armor, because the frothing gains 1 attack for each creature that takes damage. It's getting twice as much damage as Trump gains armor from those trades.
So the patron is out of the way for Firebat, but I don't think that's the deck he has to worry about. I think it's basically all focused on whether Firebat can take a win off his priest. Before the matches, before this match started, Firebat told me that he felt he was like in a pretty heavy disadvantage with just his lineup.
Yeah, I would agree. The priest and the freeze mage both seem pretty questionable against what Trump's bringing, because Trump brings these really, control-ish centered decks other than his hunter, which are very strong against the freeze mage. And like, well, Firebat may be probably one of the best freeze mage players in the world. Sometimes you just can't win with freeze mage. Like, there are limits to what the deck can pull off. So be interesting to see how that performs as well.
Yeah, it's another good point that I feel like the Freeze Mage is also one of those decks that's not really that amazing against Trump's lineup. Patron Warrior, it's not really good against Patron. It's not really good against Handlock with Ragnaros and Lotheb. Not really too amazing against the Hybrid Hunter that Trump is bringing, and also not amazing against the Druid. So it's not only the Priest, but also the Freeze Mage that might get stuck.
Yep. The Hunter, on the other hand, for Firebat, I think should be just fine. Hunters have been performing quite well, and the aggressive Hunter style will punish the Hunter from Trump, and it'll punish the Hand Warlock pretty easily. All right, hopping into the next game, Freeze Mage versus Hand Warlock. I think this is probably one of the better ones for Firebat to get, because the Hand Warlock does end up hurting themselves a lot, so you don't need like a perfect combo as the Freeze Mage. You just need one good attempt at it, and the Warlock might not be able to prevent what happens.
Yeah, there are a few key cards in this matchup. The double Mountain Giants on turn 4 or turn 5 would be pretty huge because they put up so much pressure. Double Healbot is like, it's like standard, I guess, but the other cards are like Dr. Boom is pretty threatening, and the two main tech cards in the Handlock that are important are Lotheb and Ragnaros from Trump.
There's always the underrated silence as well. The Doomsayers themselves, if they actually activate against a Hand Warlock, if you can manage to clear that board, you know, the two Giants come down and the Doomsayer then removes them, suddenly you're in a dominating position as a Freeze Mage. But most of the time the Hand Warlock will draw into a silence because they have that extra draw and they're playing two silences. So if the Doomsayer gets shut down, it can be like pretty much the end. It's a very crucial turn as the Mage.
I will say, though, that Firebat's opening hand is pretty amazing. Pretty much the two key cards. Mad Scientist into an Arcane Intellect is pretty good. He even has the Alexstrasza in his opening hand.
Yeah, on the other side of things, Trump's hand, not too bad. Molten Giants are really terrible, but he has a Mountain, he has a Healbot, and plenty of potential to draw more good stuff. There's a Silence.
One thing that, the big thing that Firebat has going for him, not aside from his excellent hand, is that Trump doesn't really have a way to deal with this Mad Scientist easily. Like that 2 chip damage that's going to get in for every single turn is actually very relevant. And I expect that Mad Scientist on its own to deal like around 6 damage or so.
Yep. Yeah, definitely important. Like the Warlock takes his own damage as well, so anytime you can get them to around like 19 health, then you're potentially just going to one-shot them. And the Warlock has to make this fine balance of staying above that one-shot point while not being vulnerable to Alexstrasza. So that early damage definitely puts the pressure on to make those decisions quicker.
So what merit do you think there was to silencing this Mad Scientist? Do you already have 2 Mad Scientists? Or rather, you already have 2 Owls, so they don't seem like as relevant against the Doomsayers. And you might take up 2 mana from your opponent from the ping, but I guess generally on turn 4, the Freeze Mage does usually have enough mana spare to ping the Owl, right?
Yeah, these are like, even though it's the start of the match and it's like the simplest decision, it's still really complicated on whether you want to silence that or not. Because as you said, it's like taking the mana from your opponent to hero power it, but still doing damage. Do you really want to prevent the defensive secret? It's not an easy call to make, and it's going to be like based on the player's decision most of the time. The Giant first here is like typically a better move where you just want to get the damage in play, but it does mean that the Giant is vulnerable to getting traded on by these small creatures, which makes it easy to die to like a Flame Strike later.
No, it's not something that I personally would think about, but it's a good choice. Good thought. Now at least Trump does have like some taunts that stem the damage, but he's already taken the toll of getting a total of 11 damage dealt to him.
Wow. Double Ice Lance is really like exactly what you want in this matchup because you're looking for that one punch. So he can't do it yet. It's 7 mana. That's 11 plus 10. Yeah, it's 21 damage in his hand if the Thalnos actually stays on the board. If Thalnos dies, it's only 17 damage, so he needs to pick up 2 damage somewhere.
Yeah, I think you just go for it here. As Firebat is like, you force him to have a heal bot, and if he doesn't have it, he just dies. And not only that, but this also forces, if Trump has the heal bot, it forces him to, oh, that ping's going to be huge.
So he had to ping there, right? Because the Thalnos will die, and this sets him
Yeah.
up for. Wait, did he have to ping actually? Frostbolt, Ice Lance. No, yeah, he wouldn't have to ping there. He could hero power next turn, and it would be the same outcome. But
Yeah.
yeah, he's gonna get super punished by double Molten Giant Coin Heal Bot, I think.
Yeah, he basically Trump needed those exact cards, but if he didn't like have those Molten Giants, what that would have done is it would have forced Trump to play that heal bot, and he wouldn't be able to develop like a huge minion on the same turn.
And the thing is, it's not over for Firebat by any means. Like this is an amazing turn for Trump, but these freeze mechanics, yeah, like those Molten Giants might not do anything for a really long time. So he just needs to draw into say one more Fireball to pick up that heal bot return, and then could be game still.
Waiting to see Firebat's reaction here.
I think he's pretty glad he picked up a Blizzard off that card draw.
Usually when Firebat gets these kind of turns done on him, he like opens his eyes really widely. He's was like, "Wow, you had that, huh?"
So there's 11 damage from just the spells in Firebat's hands. That gives him 12 if he hero powers for 5 mana. So what he needs to do is get one more Fireball, which is his final Fireball in the deck. Something like Pyroblast could maybe do it as well, because he does have the amount of time to buy turn 10. Archmage Antonidas would really be not very useful, though.
Trump is very heavily debating whether he wants the life tap here. If you life tap, you get a higher chance to get your heal bot, but if you don't, you basically give your opponent 2 damage. It's often a very big concern in these type of matches. But I think Trump will more likely than not lean towards not tapping, since he's seen his opponent's line of play, which was fireballs to the face. So it's very likely for Firebat to have a ton of damage in his hands remaining. Oh,
All right. It doesn't really do anything. He's got 14 now, which makes it 15 with hero power. Still off. If there had been like a tap from Trump, it would be much closer. I think Trump might have considered silencing a lot of those things last turn. He could have either silenced one of his own minions to put in some face damage, or silenced the Loot Hoarder just to prevent the draw, because he has 2 of them anyways.
yeah. I'm not sure if silencing his own minions does that much, though, since you can just silence them on this turn as well, and
Yeah.
it's essentially the same thing.
It's not quite enough damage, so...
Yeah. Another thing silencing does is it fills up your board, so if Firebat doesn't decide to ping and he has a second Frost Nova, then if you top deck a heal bot, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, definitely true. Filling up the board is such a huge
Oh,
pain.
there
Boy.
we go. So you oftentimes you want to wait to use that heal bot until you see Alexstrasza, but I don't think this is one of those times.
I think Firebat will just Alexstrasza next turn. That sets him up for technically lethal with the double Frostbolt, double Ice Lance hero power. He can do exactly 15.
A bit risky here. Trump not going for the heal bot, but yeah, this does play around that Alexstrasza.
That he would have got completely wrecked if he played the heal bot there. But now I think the game may be pretty much over. Trump will throw down the heal bot and taunt, and he'll pop the ice block. Firebat still has the one other ice block, but that's his final turn to buy himself time.
Is there anything that Trump could draw, or either player could draw to change the outcome of this game?
Yeah, Firebat needs like a Pyroblast.
So
He does.
if you ice block next turn, then you go off with the combo. Is that enough? It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Be,
That's
14.
yeah. Top decking Pyroblast would do it.
He's got 2 chances because he gets to draw one other card on the next turn as well. Did we actually
And
see a Pyroblast from... We saw the whole deck from Firebat, and I don't think there was ever actually a Pyroblast. He had double Blizzard, double Flame Strike.
It's a good point, actually. And the thing is, even if he had Pyroblast in his deck and he drew it, there's also the possibility that Trump just top decks the Lotheb and locks Firebat out of the game.
So what about hero power? So Trump's at 23. There's 14 from spells. You hero power twice. You're getting 16 plus the fireball for 22. Even that looks like the best top deck of a fireball here with the maximum damage should be one off.
Yeah, typically the max amount of damage that Freeze Mage can do in a single turn is 21 damage with the perfect hand. And like you said, even if he pings this turn, he's just one off.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I'm sure Firebat knows the math on that. He'll probably stick around just to see what happens. He could like maybe draw another freeze effect, and then I don't know how exactly that would work, but he'll play double Ice Lance and probably the Acolyte, since hero powering would not be enough anyways, right? Yes, it would still be one off. No.
Yep, just a little unfortunate there.
That double heal bot really clinched the game. I think this was one that, it's going to be tough for Firebat to swallow, because if he could have picked up this one, it was like, deciding potential of the series to go up 2-0, especially with his more questionable deck.
Flame Strike probably not going to help. And yeah, this is exactly what Firebat was worried about. Freeze Mage and Priest seem to be like two of the weaker decks in his lineup against Trump's particular lineup. I think actually if Firebat makes it to the finals, he'll have like a really good time, since his Freeze Mage and Priest will do really well against the Face Hunter and Zoo from from Suki Pan. Whereas Trump, he brought Hunter, or a hybrid Hunter versus and a Handlock instead, which Freeze Mage is much less favored against.
Yeah, I think you're right. The Firebat's lineup would be very, very strong against what Suki had brought. Against Trump's lineup, I mean, I think he's looking to punish the Hunter, which we've been saying Hunter is one of the most consistent, so it's going to be a tough road ahead. This next pick makes a huge difference. What do you think you would pick here in Firebat's shoes?
I think Firebat, I don't know. There's a lot of players who just like randomize it, and I'm not sure if Firebat is one of those players, but I think a good choice here would be to bring out the Priest, since Priest is since like the Handlock is out, and now your Priest actually has a ton of good matchups, or like decent matchups at least.
Yeah, I like that pick too. I think Priest would be really good. Oh, and that's what he went for. Great call. Getting the Druid is something that is probably really good for him as a Priest. This is something that a Priest can get a lot of value on, and when you swing the board with a big turn like a Light Bomb or a Shrink Cabal, we don't know exactly what's in Firebat's deck, of course. This is the secret deck that he's got with him. I think this is Trump's unknown deck as well, right? He wasn't playing Druid.
Yeah, but I mean, how unknown really is this Druid?
Yeah.
It's got Wild Growth, it's got Innervate, probably has combo. Nothing else is that important. Oh, here's a very interesting card from Firebat's deck. I don't believe we've ever seen this card in Priest before, so definitely an interesting tech. The last Priest decks that were used in competitive play include Chalky's Priest, Sixo's Priest that he got from the Korean server, and Dog's Light Bomb Priest. And all of those are slightly different. Because Sixo's Priest, or it originated from Korea, and the player who played it was Palmblad. Sixo is on Firebat's team, so I expect this Priest to be at least somewhat similar to the Priest that Sixo used.
Well, that early combo, I think you might even just charge Druid of the Claw and hit face. Nah. I mean, the Druid of the Claw in Taunt is a very stable creature against a Priest. Coin Bomb Lobber is super good here. Either creature you hit allows you to clear off something.
Again, it's just like Firebat to bring really interesting tech cards to tournaments, and it's going to pay out so well for him.
No.
Trump is like, okay.
I think hitting the Shade was probably a little better there, because he doesn't have any other answer. But
yeah, now basically that Shade is going to be alive forever until Firebat gets that Light Bomb.
The double shade with innervate combo. Uh, Combo would be 21 plus 5, 26 damage if he was to do it right away next turn. So not quite enough. He has to wait like two
Two
more
turns.
turns. Yeah, after that point.
So it's essentially like normal combo.
Yeah, the innervate doesn't matter. Then he can do a 30 damage combo, which is pretty fair. Oh, he's going to trade. What? All right, chum. You know best. Going for the creature battle here.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Trump is, I feel like he's one of those players who he's good because he has a lot of experience. And because
Ooh.
Trump, oh man, because Trump
Ooh.
doesn't actually have that much experience in this matchup, uh, this might be pretty terrible. And we see a pretty dominating position for Firebat.
Oh, man. So the Holy Nova would have still cleared off the... Like, it might have been better to trade there because the Holy Nova would have still cleared off the fresh shade, so there was no potential, really, of the combo wrecking face. But, yeah, this is just horrible now. There's no creatures. It's pure top decks for Trump.
Yeah, not only that, but the cards in his hand are just terrible here.
Presumably he's running a double combo. Oh, boy. Okay, well, it's really, really too bad that that shade died then, because that would be an easy one-turn kill.
So if the Shade were still alive, it would have like it would have 5 attack on turn 9.
It's
And
like
then
it only needs
6.
4 attack to one shot, so
Okay.
yeah, with double combo.
That's quite unfortunate for Trump that he went for that line of play.
It looks like Trump might be dead. He's dead before that point anyways, right? So
Yeah.
he would have to get to 10 mana. Oh, he gets the heal. He's not technically dead. Because he can combo and clear the board, of course. Like, next turn he could just combo and run all his trees in, and it's a pretty decent position. Well, better than the current position anyways. He's technically not dead if he hero powers, so he's debating whether he draws cards and lives with 1 health, and I think that's an okay choice here. Priest has very low damage, and you know you might need to be greedy in this situation. Yeah, so he will just die here.
Yeah, you don't really expect your opponent to have like the Holy Fire. That's a very uncommon card in Priest.
Well, Trump just kind of accepting his loss this match, but oof, that really sucks to let the Priest get by on him.
Yeah, it was certainly one of Firebat's weaker decks, and now Firebat is even ahead in the match score. So that means Firebat's only like quote unquote weak deck left is the Freeze Mage. And it will be up to Trump to basically shut out that Freeze Mage.
I have to say that bomb lobber tech worked out just amazing, right? Like there wasn't really a lot of other ways to solve that situation, and I think that might have contributed to trading with the Shade, where you fear like, okay, he has a bomb lobber, he probably plays 2 of them, like, and then it'll just kill my Shade. So that was like a very cool tech card that actually kind of sealed the match out, and I gotta give a lot of credit to Firebat for making like a Priest, which is one of the most complicated classes to deck build, even more interesting. Really sweet.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point that you mentioned. Trump might be more inclined to make that trade and not go for the line of play that might guarantee him a win on turn 9 because he saw that bomb lobber and he expects a second one. So Mage and Hunter left.
It's all down to that Mage, I guess. Looks like Firebat will save that for last and just try to steal a win off something with it.
Yeah, this is a pretty good matchup for Trump, though. I think Druid versus Face Hunter is going to be much better than perhaps Druid versus some kind of mid-range or hybrid Hunter.
Yeah, the freezing traps are really what gets you as a Druid, where your creatures get frozen, you have all these slow creatures, but the explosive trap's not nearly as bad.
Yeah. In terms of win rate, this matchup is 32-22 with a 59% win rate for the Druid.
Huh.
So it's almost like for every 2 games that the Druid wins, the Hunter wins 1 game, or for every 3 games that the Druid wins, the Hunter wins 2 games. I guess it's closer to that.
1.5.
Yeah, 3/5 of the time the Druid wins.
That's pretty good odds. I mean, I would take those odds any day. Also, Trump playing the Ancient of War in his deck is a very, very good creature in this matchup. A single Ancient of War, even when you have 8 health left, can win you the entire game.
Yeah, surprisingly though, the mind control tech that is in some players' decks, I don't think it's that great in this matchup um, compared to mid range hunter. Although Firebat does have Snake Trap in his deck.
This is working out really weird for Trump. He kept both shades in his opening hand, which is pretty good. I mean, he had the coin, so he was going to get to play them both on curve. But then he drew Wild Growth a turn late. And so now he's got 4 mana, and he doesn't even really want to play the shades anymore. So his mulligan became a bit more awkward.
Yeah, I mean, but what can you do there? Do you think there was some merit to just like coining out the shades anyway and ignoring the wild growth? He still had a really good curve if he did that.
Yeah, I think there was. I'm not such an expert in this match specifically, but I think Wild Growth generally is a lot worse than something like Innervate, where it's taking up your turn and a hunter is punishing you so quickly in the game. You want to be like actually doing something.
Yeah, just generally, wild growth is not as good as in the aggro matchups as it is in the control matchups because you will be behind in tempo the first few turns, and because the hunter is able to get board control, not only because you lose that tempo, basically the hunter gets in like that 2 to 4 extra damage that one turn that you use wild growth on. And in fact, like back in the day when like the very beginnings of Hearthstone when beta was around, wild growth was not a card that anyone used in their druid decks simply because the dominant deck by far in that format was Zoo, and you would rather even have like the Ancient Watcher and Sunfury Protector combo against Zoo. I don't know if you're old school enough to remember that hot form.
Sorry, I wasn't. I missed some of that. I was just paying attention how on turn 4, Trump is at 11 health, and he's actually at essentially 7 health because there's an Explosive Trap and a Leper Gnome in play on Death Rattle on the board. For turn 4, he is technically, like 1 turn away from dying. That just feels bad, man. I mean, you maybe you swipe here and like coin hero power, but there's no healing and no taunts in hand.
Well, I think you at this point you have to hope for the fact that this is not an explosive trap and it's possibly a snake trap.
I wasn't even counting the weapon. Oh, it was Snake. Oh my god, that is so fortunate. Okay, so he's probably dead anyways at some point here with 9 health left, but it's definitely better than 7 health. He would have actually just been dead if he had 7 health with Owl and then Kill Command.
Yeah, but he's still dead anyway. He needs to like even if he top stacks Ancient of Lore, what can he do? Oh,
Wow,
there it is actually.
he did. I could get a Vitality Totem off. No, he can't trade into the Juggler, of course. I think like Druid of the Claw, Coin Hero Power is actually slightly better than Ancient of Lore because you can't prevent the Juggler attack here. So he's going to hope that there's no damage in hand, but Firebat is going to pick up a really, really fast win here with this Face Hunter deck.
Yep, and there we have it.
That was just an absolutely disgusting amount of damage early on. Like, I feel for you, Trump. I feel for you. The Hunter is just runs you over sometimes.
Yeah, and now Firebat with a 3-1 victory, but it's actually a lot closer than the score makes it out to be since that Freeze Mage does seem to be that deck that does get stuck quite often. Again, we have to mention Freeze Mage, it's unfavored against Druid, it's slightly unfavored against the Hybrid Hunter, and it's also pretty unfavored against the Patron Warrior.
Yeah, I think Trump could guarantee a win with the Patron Warrior. The Druid and the Hunter, like Druid is slightly favored, but it's not an easy match by any means. And you still need like a decent Druid opening because you want to apply pressure quickly. The Hunter is probably the most likely one for the Freeze Mage to take a game from.
Yeah, so just going through all the matchups, Freeze Mage is 45% against mid-range Druid. Freeze Mage is 20% or like 19% against Hybrid Hunter, which is really surprising to me. It's like 3 to 13, and Freeze Mage is 7 to 12 against Patron, so that's a 37% win rate against Patron Warrior.
Yeah, and that's a pretty small sample size too. I think a lot of Patron Warriors will not play a Freeze Mage match perfectly because it's one of the most difficult to know what you're doing in. But someone like Trump will have practiced that many
Yeah.
times in the
I
past because
I completely agree. Like the like hot form, you're a very like proficient patron player. How many times have you played the patron versus freeze mage matchup?
okay, so I actually really like Freeze Mage too. That was my first deck ever in Hearthstone was Tempo Mage, and then I was free to play, so I slowly built to a Freeze Mage. And I think understanding both sides of the battle is necessary. Like you have to have played probably 100 games of both, but when you know how they each feel, then you understand exactly what you're doing. When you've only played one side, it's so easy to make mistakes because you don't understand like what the other guy's positions are going to be like and the variety of hands that they could have.
Yeah. Another thing to consider is that I feel like Firebat's particular freeze mage deck is pretty well teched against patron. Like you
Yep.
said, hot form, he has double flame strike and no pyroblast, and the flame strikes are kind of one of the key cards in the matchup, just getting rid of the patron boards.
I think we saw Firebat play against Osaka's patron, right? And
Mhm.
Osaka, he played it out just really well. There was like even some maybe iffy decisions, but it seemed like it went Osaka's way. When you make those calculated choices, you can generally take the advantage. Often as the freeze mage in patron, you have to like get a creature to stick, which can be tough. This match, on the other hand, the druid's going to apply pressure, and Lothab, great card, Silence, great card. You're just trying to build up a board.
I also really like how Trump, he wasn't really that trigger happy, and he didn't go for the keep of the grove, because one of the only ways you lose in this matchup, or one of the ways you lose, I guess, is by your opponent getting a Doomsayer off. So you really want to
Yeah.
conserve those silences.
Yeah, that Doomsayer is one of the ultimate threats. Mm. Also, the armor from the druid, like it's something that you don't notice that much as it builds up over time, but no other classes have that ability except for a warrior to actually have health still when Alexstrasza comes down. And 3 to 4 armor can make a huge difference for if the freeze mage can kill you in 1 or 2 turns right after.
Yeah. I feel like even though Trump has the Lothab and Dr. Boom in his hand, this is like one of those games where the freeze mage had a pretty excellent opening. There's not much pressure that Trump is putting on his board, and Firebat got quite a few draws from his Acolyte of Pain,
Yeah.
and he got both Mad Scientists out really early as well, thinning out his deck even more.
I will say that Firebat's deck is a bit slower than your average Freeze Mage for card draw. He's cut pretty much all the excess card draw. I think he had like just one Loot Hoarder and the Acolytes and Intellects. There's no bonuses there, no Novice Engineers, no double Loot Hoarder or anything
Yeah,
fancy. So with something
yeah.
like these Blizzards, could be pretty slow.
These days, though, it feels pretty standard. I want to
Yeah.
say like 90% of freeze mage decks, they only have that one loot hoarder, and they have
Yep.
like the double intellect, double acolyte as their card draw.
I agree. In most matches, like in aggro, I think that works really well. But there was a long time where like double novice was played before we had things like emperor and stuff to fill up the deck,
Mm.
and then you could keep up with the druid much more easily because you're drawing into that damage right away.
Oh,
Oh, and
there's the
Ragnaros.
Ragnaros.
Oh, we hadn't seen that yet. That's a huge play in this match. It's unfreezable. It's an absolutely
S-
great card.
So Trump is actually playing a very top heavy druid. He has Ragnaros, Dr. Boom, and 1 to 2 Ancient of Wars.
Yeah. Ooh,
Wait,
really interesting.
that's a bit surprising to me since we don't see a Savage Roar in Trump's hand.
Yeah.
Although, I guess, is that enough damage to lethal with the Ragnaros?
No,
That's
it's definitely not. Yeah, he must have a really specific reason because Lothab's a huge card here, and he had both Doctor Boom and Ragnaros available to him. So that's a choice I wouldn't have made, but he must know what's going on, that he wants that pressure right now.
This is a very obvious flame strike setup, so I'm wondering what Trump can do against it, and the answer just seems to be See, actually, I'm not actually sure if you play Ragnaros here because Doctor Boom, your opponent has like telegraphed a Flame Strike, and Doctor Boom would do 7 damage anyway against the Flame Strike. Although it is also possible that Firebat goes for a Blizzard instead.
Okay, so I guess what he did with the Lotheb was he guaranteed that board would hit because otherwise it would have got frozen, right? That board would never attack. And then he plays the Ragnaros knowing it won't die. And so if the Ragnaros hits next turn, he can do just the Force of Nature damage. Will pop the Ice Block. So it seems like he set up a really nice position here where he knew he had to attack with the board one time and that it was likely to get cleared unless he Lothebbed right there. This is a cool play, but yeah, that shows the power of Ragnaros to take that many hits because Firebat has no damage now.
Yeah, what can Firebat even do? Like,
Oh man.
he's gone through a lot of his card draw. He can stall and stall, but he needs like he can't even get like really great Archmage Antonidas off. He can't get great Emperor Thorsens off.
No,
And it's just the pressure coming from Trump is just amazing here. Even though Trump had a pretty slow start.
kind of sucks to give up your armor on the Loot Hoarder, but not such a huge consideration when you saw the mage burn 2 Ice Lances. You know he's in kind of desperation mode.
I don't necessarily think you have to attack the Loot Hoarder. Maybe just throw up the Ancient of Lore or Ancient of War.
Yeah. If you leave the Loot Hoarder, it could potentially trade on your board with a Flame Strike.
Sorry to tell you this, Trump. I mean, Firebat, he that heal bot's probably not going to do much.
Yeah, this looks like he can sit here for quite a while and kill creatures, but a druid's whole deck is creatures, so waiting on that Savage Roar to pop him.
Dr. Boom is also expected, though.
So
Trump, yeah, go ahead.
if he had played Dr. Boom last turn, the Blizzard might have allowed the Boombots to do enough damage that something like Force of Nature Swipe would get the job done. I think often you want to save the Boombots until, oh yeah, oh man. Often you want to save the Boombots until they're low enough that they have to, that the Boombots will kill them, because then it doesn't do anything anymore. The Ice Block will not trigger on their own turn. Well,
that seems to at least kill off the first Ice Block.
just watching the slow demise of Firebat here. He knows that he has more chances though, so
Yeah, it is quite painful though, since actually, like you typically think of Druid being a really good, one of the best matchups against Freeze Mage, but this is probably the best matchup that you have as the Freeze Mage player, since the other 2 matchups are pretty abysmal as well.
yeah. Well, like I think the Hunter, because Trump had a pretty aggressive Hunter with that hybrid style.
And again, thinking about it, these are like 3 of the worst classes to get a matchup against Freeze Mage. Is there any other deck you would rather not face? Mid-range Druid, a hybrid Hunter, and I guess you would rather have Control Warrior than Patron.
Control.
But besides those 3 decks, besides those 3 classes at least, what else is there?
I like my Healing Paladin personally. I find it has a really good win rate, but nobody else seems to play that very often. So
Yeah, I'll give you that, but yeah, probably not something that Trump will play.
I think Life Coach might have been playing the Healing Paladin at one of the recent tournaments.
Yeah,
it still has some good potential. But
Played it at Assembly, but one problem with the Healing Paladin is, I don't know if you caught that game at the Via Game House Cup where Sansifka brought an anti-Freeze Mage Paladin,
I
and
didn't see it now.
he still lost.
Yeah.
Basically, it had like lots of silences, lots of heals, Lotheb, and he still lost because he couldn't deal with an Archmage Antonidas on the field.
Yeah, I find the Healing Paladin was like really, really good, like 85% plus win rate against Freeze Mage until Emperor came around, and now it's like you can just get killed from 30. So even if you're healing a lot and staying, it doesn't actually save you.
So, okay. I think Trump was going for a slight BM there with double Savage Roar, but that's just going to be it. Trump bringing it back one more game.
Well, that's good, and I'm sure Trump is happy about that win. He knows that he's got to win with a Patron Warrior still. I would likely see that as the next pick, and then try to tie up the series at 3-3.
Yeah. But
Tense moments.
That's true. But we did mention that Firebat's deck is teched against Patron Warrior, so at least that's something that Firebat has going for him.
Yep.
Yeah,
definitely.
And these techs actually really matter in these long games, since normally when you tech against a specific deck, you might just there's a good chance you don't draw into that card. But because these games often they almost always go to fatigue,
yeah,
it's like almost 100% chance that Firebat will draw into that tech card.
This is truly a highlight worthy game for anyone watching. We're watching two masters of their class duke it out now in a battle all the way that will likely go all the way to fatigue with calculations of the entire deck of the opponent. So I'm really interested to see the specific choices these guys make in this match.
Yeah, there seems to be, as we mentioned before, there seems to be two different plans on how to win this game. The first is just, as the patron player, you can burst your opponent out or just try to put a lot of threats on the board, and you do that by drawing a lot of cards really quickly. And the other way is to just go into fatigue with a lot of armor and just play out your threats not with the intention to kill your opponent, but just forcing him to have something and forcing him to draw a lot of cards so that basically he has all the answers to your threats.
This is kind of punished, the fact that Firebat had an Acolyte and the Acolyte gets extra draws, but this is just the testing blows, right? They're drawing their cards, and they'll get a whole bunch of good cards, but it doesn't make a huge difference unless they can do the proper moves with them at the right time. So it's not a huge difference if one person gets a big lead on turn 1 to 4 in this type of matchup.
Yeah, so this is an interesting play. Even though Firebat had an opportunity to play Arcane Intellect, which you would play against almost every other deck, I think Firebat realizes that he just can't draw that many cards in this matchup.
I wonder if he prioritizes killing the Ghoul. I think the Intellect was still a pretty good choice. Even if you're not going to draw cards, you would think more save the second Intellect. But the Ghoul is pretty threatening, and if it's still on the board, there's some possible combos there. Normally the Patron Warrior is a little more scared of drawing cards because they have the big draw mechanics with something like Battle Rage. But Trump just throwing the Acolyte out there, wants some more stuff in his hand, probably because he has Emperor anyways. It's a pretty good Emperor hand. It's got most of the moving parts that he wants. Wow.
So there's a decision here as to how many draws do you give Trump. There's a very likely possibility that Firebat will just ping the Acolyte of Pain in order to give him one more draw. But again, like we said, it's more about a race. You have to budget the amount of card draws that you draw and budget the amount of card draws that your opponent draws. And you have to make sure that you fatigue just slightly slower than him by about 2 or 3 turns.
Firebat drew the Ice Block. I was going to say if Firebat didn't draw Ice Block, there was some potential to maybe get one shot in the next couple turns, considering Trump has the Emperor plus Charge Double Frothing in his hand.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I like this Doomsayer player. It denies the Emperor Thor's in on this turn.
Yeah, I like this Doomsayer a lot. He had 2 of them. It's forcing a move from Trump, or it's just shutting down initiative. And it's also saying, hey, you probably want to kill this Doomsayer because I might play Emperor next turn, and you'll have nothing on the board to deal with it. If Emperor was to come down on empty after this Doomsayer, Trump would be in a terrible position.
Yeah. Not only that, I think the Doomsayers are actually really good in this matchup, since usually the only ways you kill the Doomsayers are with executes, and you can't really use executes on Doomsayers because you have to budget those against the Antonidas and the Alexstrasza that's more likely than not going to come later on.
Yep. So Trump can kill this if he interraged his Gnomish Inventor and attacked with the War Axe, but it looks like he's just going to let it happen. No time like the present. Might as well hit him in the face.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Emperor on 6 would be amazing here. I oftentimes find that the reason the Freeze Mage either wins or loses is because of the number of fireballs he gets from the Archmage Antonidas. And there's actually been a couple of games that I've commentated on or just watched where the Freeze Mage is just one or two fireballs off, and he would just have that lethal.
Yeah, and this was it would have been a great hand to Emperor with the double Frostbolt Ice Lance. It just sets up perfectly for that Archmage combo where you could even squeeze in another Ice Lance were you to draw it and get a 4 fireball set from your Archmage in a single turn. But no Emperor to be found in Firebat's hand, so he just plays an Acolyte.
Yeah. Seems to be a pretty good Emperor hand here. I'm wondering, can we see the deck sizes from both players? Is actually really relevant at just basically any stage of the game?
Yep. Production doesn't worry about it until they have less cards, I guess.
Yeah.
I would put them at pretty even, around like slightly less than half, but that's just an eyeball. They've both drawn quite a few cards because they each had Acolyte get more than one. The Emperor is a huge play, so you certainly don't want to be like wasting that at any point. But doesn't get a lot better than this.
Yep.
So Trump has the Armor Smith too, and of course it's up to Trump which strategy he uses. This hand is like the ultimate hand you could want for killing the opponent, but often you want to just save your Whirlwinds and stuff and play them with Armor Smith because that's a very consistent strategy. I know that's what a lot of the professional players will tell you is what you should do, is just wait and gain health because you know you won't lose that way.
Yeah. There's actually been quite a debate in Korea right now as to who is actually favored in this matchup and how favored they are. Because this seems to be one of those matchups where it's almost like if you play out perfectly from both sides, one player should win around 80 to 90% of the time. Because it's both decks just have so much card draw and both decks are so consistent.
Yeah. Okay, so my eyeball math tells me that Trump is slightly off here, but because he only has a 1 Whirlwind, he has double Frothing with Patron. The Patrons would end up doing 14, and then he's Whirlwinding on like 5 creatures, so both Frothings would be another 14. It's like 28 damage. With next turn with the second Whirlwind, easy lethal, just complete overkill. And it's like this is a point where Trump might have easily realized, okay, I can't do it this turn, but what's my best damage increments for next turn to get him lowest? And that takes a lot to calculate, so he would probably be doing some arithmetic to plan out his next turn and just buying time with this current rope.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There was a pretty famous game between Life Coach and Trump where Life Coach, he was playing Patron Warrior and Trump was playing Handlock. And in that game, Life Coach ropes turns 1 through 4 just to plan out his next few turns. And he played turns 5 and 6 just immediately and killed Trump on 6.
That's really cool. I guess that showed off the strategy work then.
Yeah. It was basically he equipped weapons and attacked Trump's face every turn, and then coin Emperor, and then lethal the next turn.
Well, easy pop here. Like, no question. There is a question of how much resources you commit, and presumably Trump was doing that math. That's something that like I would write down and probably take me 5 minutes to figure out the best way to do. But no matter what, it's going to work, so it just depends on how well it works and what he can save.
Yeah.
With the second inner rage, he might actually not even need the Whirlwind.
A key, though, is how if he plays the Armor Smith or if he prioritizes the second Whirlwind, and I don't think the Whirlwind really makes too much sense since I think you have enough damage anyway.
Do you? I don't think you have enough damage now with only 1 Frothing. I mean, I guess he did the math, but Firebat's at a lot of health. He's at 31 health, so this is really scary. That rope's burning, and The board's full. You probably want to kill the Emperor too if you don't actually have enough damage. Well, it's definitely not enough to pop him here.
Another important aspect is even though Firebat runs 2 Flame Strikes, he doesn't have either of them in the deck or in his hand right now. So he might just have to Frost Nova, which gives Trump an opportunity to possibly play a Whirlwind. Like, not only does he not have Flame Strike, he doesn't even have Thalnos Blizzard, which is another option to clear off this board.
The Doomsayer would do a really good job, though.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much has to like charge the other Frothing and Whirlwind. Either way, not clearing this board, I think Trump's going to Whirlwind. It seemed like Trump wanted the armor play, right? He could have popped the Ice Block there really easily by investing everything, but he wants the armor because that is like the consistent strategy. So he'll probably just throw the Whirlwind away and maybe even charge the Frothing into the Doomsayer. This is really scary now that he did not remove the Ice Block, though.
Yeah. And also, what this does is if Firebat is able to clear with the Frost Nova Doomsayer, he doesn't even give Trump this extra armor from like a Flame Strike would give him.
Ooh, that was really cool. Doing the ping so that nothing else can fit on the board. That was a really slick play.
Yeah.
That is tasty.
Okay, so the danger here is if you Battle Rage, you draw too many cards, and you'll like the fatigue plan definitely won't work out. And the best thing he could even draw into, I guess, is the Execute. And if he draws into the Execute, clears out the Doomsayer. The problem there is he gives up one of his Executes, so he won't be able to clear Alexstrasza, one of Alexstrasza or the Archmage Antonius as easily. So Trump's more all-in play might hurt him quite a bit.
He is getting a lot of armor. I imagine he Whirlwinds, right? Yeah. He has a whole nother charge Frothing Patron combo, so there's still plenty of potential to lethal Firebat with pretty much the same damage that he did the first time around. And he has another Armor Smith as well with that, so I guess he's just trying to do like a second combo. And yeah, he stops this, but the Blizzard will now clear.
Yeah, so pretty good play from Firebat in the previous turn, pinging so that no patrons would stick. And oh, no Execute. Okay, there it is.
Waiting for the animations that need to resolve. It's so funny to me when the rope burned out 20 seconds ago and we're still watching the turn unfold. All right, throw that off. Maybe a heal bot.
Yeah. I mean, this looks to be a pretty good position from Firebat. I'm not actually sure how Trump can win from here. Since
have a lot of health.
Yeah. So the real problem is Archmage Antonius will be able to do so much. Trump has used one of his Executes, so he can't deal with either the Alexstrasza or the Antonius. And also, Trump has drawn so many cards.
Yeah, I think that Battle Rage, like he had to get the Execute there to save his board, but that Battle Rage was like a 6+ card Battle Rage or something. I don't know how much exactly, but maybe 5. Either way, that's an enormous number where 5 ticks earlier fatigue, you're taking like 25 extra damage on your opponent, so not quite that much. It's still very painful. The math involved in a patron fatigue freeze mage game gets a little ridiculous. Maybe we'll just enjoy the players.
Yeah. And not only that, because he's drawn so many cards from the Battle Rage, a lot of his cards are in his hand right now are really risky, like the Acolyte, the Gnomish, the Battle Rage. You don't necessarily want to play too many of them.
Yeah, it feels really bad to take damage from the heal bot too. You don't want to lose any of that health for free.
Yeah, you never want to take damage from like minions against Freeze Mage. And if you don't attack here, you're guaranteed to take like almost 6 damage at the combination of the next turn and the next few turns.
That was the first Death Bite still, I think, right? Because he did the first combo without a Death Bite.
Yes.
I think so, anyways. Just waiting for Archmage on Firebat's hand. All those beautiful spells now lined up for a 4 set of fireballs off the Archmage.
Yeah. Another problem in this matchup is sometimes you can just like not draw into the key cards. If Archmage or Emperor or Alexstrasza are in the bottom few cards of the Freeze Mage, it's actually pretty impactful. Likewise, if the bottom cards of Trump are something like the 2 patrons, that's also an impactful decision.
That looked like 6 for Firebat and 7 for Trump. So I think Firebat is, yeah, is well, it's very close then. Trump now abusing his card draw a little further that he's getting ahead, but it's close enough that the extra health from Trump will make a bigger impact than those extra 2 to 3 ticks of fatigue. Fatigue scales in this really weird way where as the game goes later, the extra ticks which will kill you are suddenly so much more relevant than the first few.
Okay, here it is.
So you probably kill the Harrison at least, right?
Yeah, we're gonna be able to see 4 fireballs. And to me, it does feel like at least the fatigue, in addition to these 4 extra fireballs, might be able to scale enough that it counteracts the armor gain from Trump, essentially.
But as soon as Firebat hits fatigue, all his defensive mechanics don't matter anymore. Trump still has another charge, and he has a combo in hand, so as long as he can restrain the board until the point of Firebat taking even 1 fatigue, the Patron Warrior should come out on top, since of course fatigue ends up going through Ice Block. Oh, and there's the Warsong Commander. Does he have any way to kill the Archmage? He could enter Rage and execute, I guess.
Yeah, that's the easiest way. Anything else would have to like force Trump to commit his Warsong Commander onto the field.
There's not really many activators left, though. Both Whirlwinds were played, and the Frothing Patron combo turn takes up all of the mana on its own, so there's nothing you could play if you were to do those together. Firebat's hand very uniform when you look at it. Got a dragon and a whole bunch of fireballs. Seems like a pretty good hand.
Yeah, it's Dragon Mage, right?
So I guess if the patrons had just been played out there, that would have been really strong, but it's tough to make that read.
Yeah, and now I feel like this is a pretty easy... It's a pretty easy Alexstrasza since you've seen both executes. Is there any reason not to play Alexstrasza here?
You could worry about Alexstrasza yourself in case Trump was to go early. I like the Alexstrasza there too, but I think it's fine not to, because until you hit fatigue, you don't really have to make that decision with it. We did see in the last time, oh right, the Death Bite, that's a really good activator. We saw in the last time this match was played for Firebat against Oskake, he Alexstrasza the warrior early, and it punished him for it, so that might be weighing on his mind a little as well. It's like not actually that much damage.
Yeah, it turns out these fireballs just completely... It counteracted the armor, so now we're on a more even game. But you also have to account for the fact that because Firebat threw in 2 Flame Strikes in this deck, he doesn't have a Pyroblast.
It's really cool to me that after all of those decisions, it worked out to exactly remove all of his armor. Like that's pretty wild that Trump is now sitting at a perfect 30 with max damage.
Trump does have the opportunity though to get even more armor here because he drew the second Armor Smith. I've seen a lot of players say that you don't want to use your Armor Smiths until you get both of them on the board.
Yep. I support that strategy a lot. Trump made like kind of a mid-range patron play where he got a bit of armor and he did a bit of damage, but he didn't get a ton of armor and he didn't pop the ice block, so he's left with one more mid-rangey type of patron play here that he has to choose how he wants to use. I kind of don't mind that strategy where he gets to make the decision as the battle gets later of which way is going to be the most effective to win with this second combo.
Whoa. Actually, is Trump waiting for a particular card?
Uh, I think he's waiting for Firebat to play something. He knows Alex Straz is still there, so he could use his creatures to kill that and then remove the final threat, which should let him win the game, right? But
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. He knows because Alexstrasza, he doesn't have any way to deal with the Alexstrasza if it were not for like the charging a Warstone commander into it, I guess.
and if Firebat waits till fatigue, then Trump will likely just go face and attempt the kill. With the Mad Scientist on the board, he can pop the Unstable Ghoul on it, accounting the Whirlwind from the weapon. So the Frothing would be triggered twice, which is pretty good.
We were talking about how Firebat he threw in like these tech decisions to counteract Patron, but it actually turns out to hurt him because that second Flame Strike, he wasn't able to draw any Flame Strikes early on in the game. So what that means is he doesn't have a Pyroblast, and Pyroblast would actually be better in this particular situation over a second Flame Strike.
Yeah, Pyroblast would seem pretty amazing right now, considering he cut through just all of the armor. Oh, this is so close. I mean, at this point, probably the players have gathered what decks or like what cards are left exactly, and they're trying to, you know, play a little bit around what the possibilities from their opponents are. This is kind of a weird play to me to just play out the Ghoul because that's like one of your only activators, but
Yeah. Firebat
So
actually he can't play this Blood Mage Thanos on the board.
Trump has enough damage once the fatigue hits. He's got 10 plus the frothing for like a 5 damage frothing or something. It's barely enough, but it will be able to get Firebat. Firebat would need over 20 health. Very close, very close.
So it seems to me that Firebat's plan is he wants to Alexstrasza himself once he hits fatigue, or once his opponent can potentially pop his ice block.
I think Firebat gets punished by not playing that Alexstrasza earlier now. Now that he's at fatigue, there's no options left. He knows he's going to die, and Alexstrasza himself does nothing, so he still dies no matter what he does here.
Yeah, it just seems like using the Alexstrasza here instead of a few turns ago just seems like strictly worse. Since now Trump has had a chance to draw into all of his cards, and he has more of an opportunity to answer this Alexstrasza.
I think the idea from Firebat was that he knew Trump calculating now he has to get Firebat, of course, to exactly 1 health, right? Or actually 2 health because he took 1 of fatigue. But no, maybe it's 2. In any case, if the Alexstrasza had been played earlier, Firebat knew it would die to creatures. And he didn't want to let that die because that was his way to win. So he was hesitant to play it. But if Trump had committed creatures, he would not be able to pop the ice block here. So you could, like, you know, they're very close on health at this point. If the creatures had traded off even, I think the mage might be able to take it in a position like this. He would have cleared the board, of course, from any extra creatures after the Alexstrasza was removed. So really, really, really complicated game, but that was quite sweet to see. And it looks like the slightly favored Patron Warrior will come out with the win. Frothing has 6. No, I guess. Oh, okay. Yeah, that works. Really nice. Got to figure out the wild math to get him to just the right amount.
All right, there it is. That
Wow.
was actually like again, it's a really close game. Even though most people would say that the Patron is favored, it really came down to the last few cards. But then again, it was like Firebat. I feel like he was trying to bait out creatures from Trump, but Trump didn't take the bait.
That was that's like something that if you play one of those classes, I would go back and watch that match and like study the decisions because those guys played that game really, really well for such a complicated game. Like we could see the hands and we still didn't know the plays.
Yeah, I do feel though, just after watching that game, it does seem like Patron Warrior is at quite an advantage since I felt like Firebat had above average draws with the exception of not getting flame strikes early. and Trump, he was forced into difficult positions like battle raging for 4, and
Yeah.
then having to execute a non-Alexstrasza, non-Archmage Antonidas target.
Yep. Yeah, I agree that like the Patron Warrior, was in an awkward situation for most of the game, but still come out with the win is like pretty telling.
Yeah. So we're gonna come down to our final match. It started off with Firebat going 3-1, but like we predicted, the Freeze Mage is just the weak link here, having an unfavorable matchup against pretty much everything. Yeah, pretty much everything. And we're gonna come down to Freeze Mage versus Hybrid Hunter as the last match, and this is gonna be a pretty interesting one. What's most interesting to me about this matchup is that Freeze Mage is really favored against Face Hunter, but it's really unfavored against the Hybrid Hunter. And just again, throwing out some stats, it's 15-6 against Face Hunter, but 3-13 against the Hybrid Hunter. And
Oh,
the differences between these two decks is only the 2 high mains, the 2 shredders, and the Lotheb generally. So 5 cards seems to make the difference.
that is an enormous difference of like major advantage to major disadvantage. So that's really cool. The sample size is still a little small on that, but I mean, like that's telling that definitely there is an advantage to one side or the other.
Yeah.
I think that both of these guys will play this match perfectly. Like this type of match, you're more dealing with your own hand, and you have like pretty standard plays. There might be a couple decisions in the match, but this is going to come down to like deck building and whose lineup ended up being better at the end of the day, I guess, in this specific series.
I do have to somewhat question though this ice barrier keep from Firebat. I know it's really, really good against Face Hunter, but Trump is not playing Face Hunter, and I'm wondering if maybe Firebat actually didn't research Trump as much, because I know Firebat is actually on vacation right now. He's down at the Archon house. He's actually visiting his family, so he might have not had enough time to watch Trump's VODs and figure out what type of hunter that is.
Hmm.
Would you keep the ice barrier if you knew you were playing hybrid hunter?
I probably would. Every hunter does face damage, right? So the longer you live, the more chances you get to draw your own damage and ways to kill them.
Okay, fair enough. I've heard argument against not keeping the ice barrier against the hunters that rely more on the minions. And speaking of minions, we see quite a lot of them in Trump's hand.
Yeah, I think Trump kept a high main in the opening hand, so he definitely wanted his big creatures, and he got them. He's going to have Shredder into Coin high main, which is absolutely insane mana curve.
Yeah. Another difference between hybrid hunter and the face hunters is that hybrid hunters have explosive trap, or rather, they have freezing trap, while the face hunters have the explosive trap, and I feel like that actually makes a huge difference, since against freezing trap, you can't really run your scientist into your opponent's minions. You have to rely on them dying naturally, and also Alexstrasza becomes a minion that can't really attack against the freezing trap.
Well, so I mean, this is good for both sides, honestly. Firebat at least has something like an Emperor next turn, which you don't really want to just let sit there as Trump. So you might either have to trade, or you don't play your second high main next turn if Emperor comes out.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I really like that how we're seeing both decks get really amazing draws. So we'll get to see both decks play to the full extent of their potential.
Yeah, you do have to feel like double high main is the maximum potential, whereas Firebat did draw into a bit of a slower start. He didn't get anything other than a Mad Scientist and an Acolyte, so. So in this type of match, normally it's like the Freeze Mage just tries to not die for a really long time, and then all of a sudden they kill the Hunter. So you're trying to like pack together your damage and just keep your ice blocks coordinated. Because something like 2 ice blocks, it's actually easy for you to lose the first ice block and then start attacking and actually still kill the Hunter if you have your damage lined up properly.
Trump really wanted to follow up with the second high main here, but it looks like he might have to do something else in order to prevent the Emperor Thor's getting more draws off.
Yeah.
Like you kind of don't really want to either Glaive Zuka or Abusive Sergeant here.
Yeah, I kind of like the Glaive Zuka, and you just see if it hits the Shredder first. Juggler is a little weird because there is an Acolyte.
Huh.
Well, that was good.
Firebat gives kind of a signature side smirk.
Oh my. And then Trump trades after?
Oh, there was an opportunity to actually mill Firebat.
Ah, okay. That makes sense then.
So actually Firebat got pretty lucky at that point.
Missing out on face damage here though, with actually attacking into the Acolyte.
Whoa! Look at that.
It's kind of terrible.
So you have to Frostbolt to 6-1, sure.
Flame Tongue Totem won't attack now.
You know, at least there is a pretty good Loatheb here.
It's abusive Sergeant. Get that Flame Tongue Totem into battle. Alright, this is getting really complicated now. There is 2 ice blocks from Firebat, which I think he's really happy to see in his hand. Lets you plan ahead so much more because you know the hunter won't have healing and won't have any way to get around the ice block.
Again, Firebat is setting up for some pretty good flame strikes here, I feel. Or just another blizzard. And it does feel like Firebat's actually going to be able to deal with both these high mains pretty well.
Flame Tongue value. Yeah, this is tough now for Trump. I mean, I think you want to play the Loatheb here just because it's a big creature, but you need the Loatheb on more specific turns. We can say that Firebat does not have an ice block in play yet, so I think that makes you a lot more likely to Loatheb, just knowing that he could be like all spells in his hand that he wants to set up.
And not only that, I feel like Firebat kind of telegraphed either a Flame Strike or a Blizzard here. So, little unfortunate that Firebat doesn't have the Frost Nova. He really needs that at that point.
This is
Frost Nova,
really, really scary.
Oh, certainly. It's so much damage on the board. You can reduce some of it by clearing off this high main, but, you know, still quite a bit. It's funny that Frost Nova is like the counter to Loatheb, though. You definitely wouldn't think so.
There's currently there was 16 damage in play, which meant the double kill command would have killed him, even if he hero powered the high main. That is, there was no more than that actually, but yeah, there was a lot of damage in play. So the double kill command would have easily ended his life if he did not remove something there, and so now he takes the punishment. He does have a lot of fast spells for later though. Looking for Alex Straza, I think. Normally you want to Alex Straza the Hunter, but you can easily use it on yourself once the Hunter runs out of cards, and Trump is getting pretty out of stuff here. It's a cool play.
Oh, yeah. So now Firebat really wants Trump to trade in, but with the R&B Gal, I don't think that's necessarily something that Trump has to do.
Wonder about double Ice Lancing the Flame Tongue Totem. He would have got hit for 11 from the board, and then he would have 10 health. Yeah, I guess that's not worth it. And this is a secret, of course. It's an ice barrier, and I think Trump might be really inclined to think that it's ice block. Yeah, and then popping the ice block here would feel great, but Firebat set this up perfectly. Oh, and now the ice barrier comes down, and he realizes he's not actually that close.
Yeah. So I wonder how much of a merit there was to playing the Glaive Zuko beforehand.
Oh, wait. Does he have lethal here? Maybe he does. With the Wolf Rider 2 for 5, yeah. That Flame Tongue Totem.
Oh, wow.
Oh man, that flame tongue totem, sealing the game.
Oh, Trump wonders. He's so happy. Trump is going to PAX after all with a 4-3 victory over Firebat. That's pretty amazing. Yeah, I actually didn't see the owling the high main because like you would like it's not a very common scenario where you silence your own 8-1 high main.
Yeah.
Right? It's more obvious where even against like a Ragnaros, you silence that, you get to attack, right? But silence your own high main, very nice from Trump. It's also especially important for Trump since Trump, because of this victory, because Sukipan can attend PAX, Trump is directly qualified towards PAX, and he's going to get at least 10 Hearthstone World Championship points from PAX, which is the last big tournament of the year that gives World Championship points. So that pretty much guarantees him, I think, a top 8 finish in terms of Hearthstone World Championship points in the North American region.
Yeah, that was a really good series. Of course, the Freeze Mage did get punished, like 3 games in a row, which was a little sad to see because Firebat played it really spectacularly, but just didn't quite materialize there.
Yeah. So right now we're not gonna have a third place match like we normally do, but we're gonna have Trump versus Suki Pan in the finals. We're gonna have that with just right after a short break. But before we get to that, want to give you guys a chance to support our sponsors and to support esports by going to geico.onog.gg. You can also get a quote from the GEICO website, and in addition, you can enter for a chance to win for an official TSM PC at the same place. Again, we have to remind you guys that you can join our opens on liquidhearth.com as well. There are going to be 2 opens tomorrow and 2 opens on Wednesday, and you're going to have a chance to win a chance to go to PAX, earn a lot of money, earn Hearthstone World Championship points, and also earn a chance to play Trump in the finals, perhaps. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll see you right then in about 5 minutes.